Now on the D3Football.com Around the Nation podcast, we're joined by Aaron Keene, the head coach at WashU. You may know them as Washington U or Washington University in St. Louis. WashU is not in the state of Washington. They are in the state of Missouri. And now going from the CCIW to the North Coast Athletic Conference. Coach, first off, really appreciate you joining us. And secondly, obviously, that is the topic of this conversation. That's a big change.
It is. I appreciate you having me on here and asking for us to be involved. Appreciate all you guys do for the game of football and certainly at the Division III level. So happy to share a little time with you today.
Thanks, Coach. Tell us about moving into this conference, right? We saw last year what the NCAC was already becoming. The addition of John Carroll makes a huge difference in a lot of sports, and football is certainly chief among them. And now you guys are going to go into that conference, and it's going to be a big challenge. And tell us a little bit about just the whole process of what you're doing now to try to prep for that in the fall.
Yeah, I guess I'd start with I so much appreciate what our administration has done here in giving all of our athletes an opportunity to compete against the best in the country. And as you guys know, most of our sports are involved with the University Athletic Association. And when I was a player here back in the dark ages, we played a UAA football schedule, and the advent of the automatic bids kind of caused that to go away, which some of those rivalries I wish we could get back. I think that was an awesome experience from a football perspective for me. And so coming back here 6 years ago, having the opportunity to play in the CCIW against North Central and Wheaton and Illinois Wesleyan and Augustana, programs that have a lot of tradition to them, and obviously two of them they're doing really well right now, felt like we were giving our football players kind of an equal opportunity to be able to compete against the best in the country, and in a really good conference and a really good travel situation for us. And so when that ended, our leadership, went right to work and trying to find a good home for our football program. And I just finished a junior day where I get to kind of talk about some of the teams that we'll be able to play. And, one of our program goals is for us to be at our best and be able to compete for championships. And I feel like our administration has put us in a really good spot to be able to play some great football schools, have some unique travel opportunities. And I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun for our guys.
I haven't seen your full schedule yet. I've seen the handful of games on a number of your opponents. So I do know that you start the NCAC schedule with DePauw, which is great for starting right out of the gate. But if it's available to be mentioned on this podcast at this point, who's the non-conference game you start with?
Yeah, we play Rhodes down at Rhodes this year. So the challenge is, 4 home games, 6 away games. But just with the change in schedule didn't necessarily work out in balancing our schedule out. And we like the rivalry we have with Rhodes. It's the school that we have played the most in our history. And so we're continuing that for a couple more years here. And then we'll kind of see what happens. It's a changing landscape in college football. And I think one of the nice things at our level when you have one non-conference game is to have a little bit of variety with it. So we'll kind of see what direction we go after a couple of years.
How much homework are you and your staff doing this off season to learn about the slate of 9 new teams that you guys are going to play after you've sort of, fell into some familiarity with the CCIW teams?
Yeah, that is the big challenge, right? I mean, it's for 5 years now, and it was probably different for me because I was the newcomer on the staff. And so poured myself into CCIW film and look back on games that maybe happened in 2017, 2018, and 19, just to kind of figure things out, and had a really good feel for how teams were going to play, certain formations offensively or, how they would adjust defensively. And, it's going to be a new deal for us in a lot of respects, leaving a league that tended to play one way defensively, and maybe we're going to see a totally different scheme this year, or, more variety in that scheme. And so offensively, we'll have to adjust different athletes that we're not accustomed to or familiar with, I guess a better way to put it. So we'll find out about those guys. And And then you throw on top of that travel into new locations, right? New trips for us and how we get there and playing in a new stadium. Those have all been, kind of old hat for us. Where we stop on the way up at Wally's truck stop on the way up to Chicago to play those CCIW games is just old hat and familiar for our guys, and so we're going to have to get used to a new routine. So, hey, we've poured ourselves into a little bit of it, but we spent obviously a lot of our winter finishing up a recruiting class and getting better at the things that we need to get better at, doing some professional development and visiting some staffs and getting ready for spring football. And as we finish up spring ball, we'll kind of dive deep into this new conference and look at the offensive, defensive schemes, special team schemes, and start to kind of build some preliminary scouting reports as we get into the summer, so we can get a little jump start there.
Not to get too specific, but a school like John Carroll, which loses a bunch of guys and also has a head coaching change, do you spend as much time trying to do a deep dive on them, or is there, do you think that maybe some of 2025 is not going to be as relevant as you might otherwise expect?
Yeah, I would say the teams that are on the front end of our schedule, like DePaul, you mentioned our first conference game, those are the games we're going to have to do a little bit more of a deep dive and more preparation, because you're going to have less game footage film to base off your game plan the next year. So trying to get a jump start on those things. But yeah, a team later in our schedule, we play them right before a bye week, kind of middle of the year. We can wait and watch the film for this year, especially because there's a lot of turnover with some of the personnel and certainly the coaching changes, particularly on their offensive side. We'll just kind of wait and see what that film looks like.
Greg Wabash is on that list too. But much deeper in the season. That looks like week 8 to me as I'm looking at it on my schedule.
Yeah, and Wabash has got a pretty extended history with WashU. Played WashU a lot. Wabash and WashU have played. There was Pat, you'll remember back in the day there was a UAA NCAC scheduling agreement, and so WashU was an annual thing for a little bit. But interesting connection here as well. Coach, you coached with Chris Creighton at Eastern Michigan. Chris Creighton, obviously, he coached at Wabash. He played at Kenyon. He's familiar with the league. Have you had a chance to ask Coach Creighton about the league that you're going into?
We've talked a little bit about it. He's got a really good friend that's a head coach at Wabash, so he's not going to give us too much information. And I've got, there are other guys on our staff. Tony Niemeyer was on our staff at Eastern Michigan, was a center for Coach Creighton at Wabash, and loved his time there. So there's a lot of connections there, and I look forward to having a little friendly bet with some of those Wabash guys, I guess, as we get going into it. It'll be a great rivalry. That's a great school, a great football program. And from a proximity standpoint, it's pretty close here, when compared to the others. So I look forward to that being a great rivalry for us.
You succeeded Larry Kinbaum as head coach of the Bears. And I know that we were talking before we got the recording started, and he stayed on your staff until very recently. I received his book, Winning and Losing Are Imposters, Leadership Lessons from the Sidelines. You are name checked on the back cover. So I'm wondering, not if you've read it or anything like that, but, Coach Kinbaum in his, I don't know, I wouldn't quite call it semi-retirement, but in his post-retirement gig with you guys, what was it like having him around?
Well, it was awesome. From my perspective, he was like a second father to me.
Right, he was your coach.
Yeah, honestly, when I showed up as a 18-year-old kid from Cheyenne, Wyoming, he was my position coach, my coordinator, and my head coach. And so I spent an awful lot of time with him as a player. And then I had, the unique opportunity to stay around my alma mater, spend 8 years as an assistant coach in the late 90s and early 2000s, and working for Larry on both sides of the football. And so I learned an awful lot of football from him. I learned an awful lot about how to be a great husband, father, coach. They're just like, I lean on him so much for advice on anything in my life, whether it's professional or personal, always have. And, so it was a incredible experience, a unique opportunity to be able to include him on our staff. I'm glad he had a willingness to do it, to stay around in his retirement and spend time. He wasn't a part-time coach who was just kind of showing up on the field every now and then. He was a full-time coach. He was my best recruiter. He was our best position coach. He was our special teams coordinator. Just did an outstanding job. Everything that I saw in my time as a player and my time as an assistant coach, it was still there. And just fantastic to be around him and be able to lean on him for things that, it'd been a while since I'd been at Division III level, and just, to be able to have somebody who's been around it that long and had so much success to bounce things off of him and get his input was pretty powerful, especially in such a challenging time. I mean, that first year back was COVID, and we didn't play football, and there were a lot of things we had to do to keep our football program together. And be creative with it. And Larry was great about all that stuff. So I had the experience of playing for my father in high school back in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And I was just good enough that I got my father fired. And it was an incredible experience playing for my dad. And then to have another guy when I get to college, and there's a gentleman, Larry Kimbaum, who again could become like a second father to me, that poured so much into our relationship. Was really powerful, and it motivates me every day to be a better coach, to be that connected with our players, to develop those types of relationships. So I was sorry to see him retire. We lost our 72-year-old secondary coach and replaced him with a 25-year-old coach around here. So there were some big changes.
How did you get your dad fired? Sorry, I did not get very far past that.
We just didn't win enough football games, and I was a quarterback, and I had a twin brother who was just an outstanding athlete and football player, was all state both ways, was a state champion wrestler. And it's kind of like the movie Twins. Like I was the Danny DeVito of that pairing.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, being the other twin in that, for the portion of our audience who is not familiar with that late 80s, early 90s classic.
So my brother had a lot of success. I unfortunately was the quarterback who couldn't hit the passes enough for us to win enough football games to keep my dad employed as the head football coach. But I got, that also led to, he ended up retiring and coming to work for me at Illinois College. So he was my offensive line coach for 5 years at Illinois College in my first head coaching stint. So that was a pretty special experience as well.
Awesome.
Coach, can you tell us a little bit about the feelings you have leading the program that you played for, like being the head coach at your alma mater, and sort of the extra feelings and emotions that come along with that, as opposed to other places that you don't have that kind of background with?
Yeah. It was an interesting time as I was looking at this job. It was going to open up. Coach Kimbaum had given me a call to see if I would be interested in looking at it. And we talked a long time about it. At that point, I was the offensive coordinator at Eastern Michigan. We had just played in the Quick Lane Bowl against Pitt and had a really good offensive showing. I was coaching some really good kids and having a blast being an offensive coordinator. And I've just, you got to make some decisions on what you want to do. I've always thought in my heart that like I belonged as the head coach at WashU. I don't know if I ever pictured Coach Kimbaum retiring.
Yeah.
And so had not put a ton of thought into it. And so when it happened, I had to do some soul searching and think about what direction I wanted to take the career. I've got 3 kids, and it was going to give me an opportunity to move to a location that I loved and be around an institution I loved, and hopefully get a little bit of solid footing for my kids in kind of finishing their high school, hopefully in one place. That was kind of one of the goals. But the other thing was, I loved this institution. I loved my time here as a student athlete. I felt like it changed me for the better. It impacted me in such a powerful way. And I could look at our current players and see that they were having a very similar experience to what I had. And I didn't mind being a part of that. I loved being a part of that and try and put my spin on it and influence in it in hopefully a special way. But then the other thing I would throw on it is I am a football coach. So as much as I love this place, I didn't want to come back to a place and be a head coach where I couldn't win.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least, it's have the opportunity to win. There's no guarantees in it, but I just got done telling a group at a junior day. I think that's the thing that makes this place special, is that you have an opportunity to recruit really special young men who are very motivated, driven, and intelligent, and and they care about football. They love the game of football. It's part of our culture, right? I mean, they choose this place because of it, and that's fun to be around. And so I know I've got an opportunity to be successful here. And so being selfish as a head football coach, that made it a no-brainer for me to be able to come back to a place that I feel so strongly about, and where we're going to be able to have some success if we do the right things, and we can create this special experience for these guys who get an opportunity to come through this place.
We are in an off season right now where a bunch of pretty prominent Division III head coaches have departed and then gone on to be head coaches at the D1 FCS level, including someone who left his alma mater in order to do so. We even up to, 18 months ago, would regularly talk about how D3 is the place where you come back to coach your alma mater and you stay for 20, 30, however many years. I'm looking at that a little differently in the course of the events of the last several months, but you so far, anyway, you've talked about, you mentioned it, right? But staying here at this program, watching all those things happen around you, what are the sort of things that you think about when you see coaches do that sort of thing?
Well, those upper levels have changed so much, right? I've been fortunate enough to be a head coach at two Division III institutions, a Division II institution in Minnesota State University, and then having worked at the FBS level. I left Eastern Michigan shortly after the transfer portal was starting and right as NIL was coming out. And so if I talk to people at that level right now, like, it is a changed world, and the profession is a little bit different, right? And there are a lot of those coaches at that level that'll look at a job like a Washington University, like a job I have, and say that's a pretty good place, right? Now, you're not going to make $1 million a year or $11 million a year doing it. That's
Right.
the downside of being at Division III. You've got to be in it for the right reasons. But it is a pretty special level to be at right now. And I feel like it's cliche to say it's, the true college football, but it's becoming more so like that. The more and more we get into transfer portal and NIL, we don't feel transfer portal at WashU because kids are choosing this place for the right reasons. If they leave our football program, they're generally staying here at the university and getting a degree that's going to be life-changing.
Okay.
And we just don't have to deal with NIL. I know it exists at our level, but with these kids choosing this place for the reasons they do, it just has not become an issue. And so I feel like it has just been a complete godsend for me to be at a place I care about at the right time, right? I mean, it's just an awesome time to be at this institution at this level.
You talked about being successful and also about some of the great teams in the CCIW that were ahead of you. Very difficult to get past North Central. Very few teams have done that overall across the entirety of Division III over the past several years. And Wheaton has been very good as well. You're going into a conference where I think similarly you are going to be competing with a couple of other top dogs for the opportunity to do the NCAA postseason rather than just, I'm so sorry for saying it this way, but just playing in a bowl game. What are the things that WashU needs in order to kind of get over the hump and get from, the team that is 8-3, 7-2 to the team that is, 10-0, 9-1, or, 9-1, 8-1, and can get one of those playoff bids?
Yeah, it's a great question. And if you have any great ideas on making that jump, I'd take them. I'm really happy with like where our program's at. If I look at how we played last year and how we competed, I thought we competed better against those top teams than we ever have.
Yeah.
Maybe 2022 was our other, year where we've done that, finished 8-2 that year and played some really good football against the best teams. North Central is a different animal. And I don't know that, in my 5 years that we've competed the way that we needed to make me happy as a head coach. But they've got really good football players and they're really well coached, and they did a nice job of playing us. And so that's something we've got to kind of grow from as we look at it. And as we play some of the top teams across the country, that's what we'll have to do a better job of. I think we've done a better job of competing against a team like Wheaton, and those have been great football games over the last several years. This one came down to 4 points. We had the ball at
Yep.
the 20-yard line. It got intercepted with
Mhm.
40 seconds left, and we had a pass on second down, one-on-one with our best receiver. Their defensive back did a great job defending it. And like, to me, that's game over if we get opportunities like that. And we have to make those plays. So when you're asking what we need to do, I think we have the right pieces of that puzzle. We've done a great job recruiting here. Our institution has helped us from a recruiting standpoint, put us in a position where we can kind of get a collection of talent here that can then win football games like that. And now it's coaching them up in the right way to put them in the best position to be able to rise to that challenge and make the plays when they need to in those moments, and for us to make the right calls, honestly, in those moments. So
Sure.
I look forward to that, though. I mean, those games we've had against Wheaton the last 3-4 years that have been really close games have been the most fun games I've coached in my time at WashU. Like, our kids love competition; they love playing against the best teams. Those close games are something they feed off of. They play those games every week if we could, right? And I love that about them. And so we'll have more opportunities for that in this new league. I think that's the biggest challenge we'll have in stepping into this. We've had like those two teams at the top of our conference in the CCIW that have been kind of far and above everyone else. And we know those have been our challenge. There have been other teams. Augustana has been pretty solid, and we had a great battle with them the last several years. And that's a team that won 4 national championships, right? There's a lot of history in that. But I think if you look at our league, what we're going into, there's a better balance of power, to be honest with you. And it's going to be quite a challenge to week in, week out, to be able to rise to that and play our best football.
Yeah, I know that, when Greg and I and the rest of the folks kind of on our quote unquote team have talked about what the top of the NCAC looks like now, right? You put John Carroll, you put DePaul, you put you guys, you put Wabash in kind of a hopper right now. And I don't really know who you pull out of the hat first, because I think, I think there's been enough turnover, and anytime a new team comes into the league, you guys are going to, change that dynamic a little bit too. I think the NCAC race is going to be fun this upcoming season. About as fun as it was for women's basketball. If we have any NCAC football, women's basketball crossover on this podcast, that's your, this is our official acknowledgement of the Big Red of Denison as the women's basketball national champs for 2026. But this league has only gotten more interesting over the course of the past couple of years, and maybe this is where I tab Greg instead of Aaron for reaction.
Yeah, I mean the North Coast for quite a while was a 1 or 2 horse league, and DePaul got a lot better with Bill Lynch, and Brett Dietz came in there and has done a fantastic job. Denison has been solid for a long time. Jack Hayden does a great job. Wabash has been consistently good. You add John Carroll. John Carroll is a team that beat Mount Union last year in the playoffs. DePaul has been in the playoffs for a number of years in a row now. They went up to Whitewater and won. So the North Coast has teams that have beaten those teams now. And instead of a league where you have sort of a 2 or 3 marquee games throughout the course of a season, every week is going to deliver 2 or 3 games that you look at and like, this is a really good game between 2 really good teams. I'm really looking forward to North Coast Athletic Conference football in 2026.
I absolutely agree. And the team you mentioned in Denison, we see them out on the road recruiting a lot in all parts of the country. I think they work their tails off in what they're doing. They've developed a really good program. They're winning for a reason. And I've watched them a little bit on tape. I'm very impressed with the skill that they have and how they play. And that's a team that finished 6-4 last year. That's what the balance of power in that league and the challenge you're going to have each week is just going to be a little bit different than what we faced last couple of years. And, I'm looking forward to that challenge. It's going to be exciting for our players.
Last question, and I'm going to harken back to something you said a few minutes ago about NIL not being something you really have to worry about at this level. This is the month. Earlier this month, Jim Catanzaro, the head coach of Lake Forest College, said on the Left Hash Call, for those who are not familiar, that is Seth Howard's podcast, that there are multiple Division III private schools who are working with $250,000 to $300,000 of NIL money for football. I'm assuming that maybe WashU is not one of them. Is that the sort of, are you seeing that? Are you running across any of that?
I heard that interview.
Right.
I have not heard that money amount at different places. I do, and I have had conversations with other coaches around the country about how much they're getting involved with it. I do know there are schools who are actively pursuing NIL collectives and trying to gain something. I just have to say personally, I'm against it. I don't believe it's a part of Division III. I think it honestly should be illegal for Division III, but as long as it is legal, I totally get why people are going to pursue it and try and get an advantage. I'm not going to hold it against them. I think there's enough challenges. Like if you look at us as an institution, we have a $16 billion endowment. Like nobody's gonna shed a tear for WashU complaining about needing money, but we've got to find a way to travel now to the Cleveland area, right? Our travel expenses are up exorbitantly. And so that's an issue for us. We've got to be able to field a bigger roster right now than we've had and be able to suit those guys up. And we've got locker room projects going here to trying to improve some of the facilities we have. There's just a lot going on in college athletics, and to throw NIL on top of that, I think we're asking for trouble. And so I take a back seat. I'll let our administration go. We're going to field the best football team we can, and we're going to have guys that choose this place for the right reason. If we have some big donor wants to come in and start an NIL collective, I'm certainly not going to say no to them. But I think we've got other priorities we need to kind of put our attention to at this point in our program and with our institution.
Your other sports, I'm pretty sure they fly to Cleveland, don't they?
They do. Yeah. Yeah, we actually have a flight to Cleveland this year. And so that's some of the increased travel costs that we'll have. And I'm at an institution where our guys need to get back and get to the academic side of things. So having an 8-9 hour bus ride gets a little bit more challenging. I know that's going to exist, going up to Columbus and things like that, but we'll deal with all that.
The UAA experience, right? It's exactly like the same conversation at Carnegie Mellon over the course of the past couple of years, right? They're thinking the exact same thing.
Absolutely. And when I left here in 2002, it's right after the 9/11 attack, and that changed, travel for football programs on flights immensely. It used to be quite easy to jump on a flight with a football team. Now it's a little bit more challenging. So there's some things that I'm going to have to get used to. I got awful used to charter flights at Eastern Michigan. That was pretty nice, but if I can come up with a way budget-wise to pull that off, we'll certainly do it.
Is that out of Willow Run Airport?
It was, yeah. Very good.
I went through 2nd through 5th grade in Ypsilanti, Michigan. So
okay, great area.
I appreciate you joining us.